Summer greetings from Canadian Mennonite University. Yes, summer has begun, and we're thinking about the fall. As we do that, the phrase return to community is guiding our plans. Now, health authorities tell us that they're hopeful that by September, enough people around here will be vaccinated to make it safe to study and to live in close proximity to one another in the classroom, in the dining hall, in the dorms, in the gym, in the choir rehearsal, and so on. But we're not calling this return to normal. Some distancing will still be needed. And more importantly, there's an incredible opportunity this fall to cultivate new and healthier ways for human beings to live in relationship with one another. And not just humans. This is a critical time to work at well-being across all human creatures. That is all that has life and breath, to quote the psalmist. Now, one way to foster health as we return to community is for all of us to understand at least a bit of science about the pandemic. And so here's CMU biology professor Rachel Krause to answer a few questions. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Cheryl.
So tell us something about health authorities. Like, why does it feel like they keep changing their mind? Is there a scientific reason to make that actually a good thing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the short answer is that we're living science in real time. Usually health authorities would wait until they have all the information to make a recommendation to us. So researchers would have time to go and do lots of different studies, bring all of their results together, and hand more or less a complete package of knowledge to health policymakers that we can then follow. So, around different medications or treatments or different chemicals that may have health concerns. That wasn't a luxury that we had with COVID. You remember it came on really quickly, it was widespread, and it was very serious. And public health authorities needed to be able to give people advice about how to protect themselves and their families and their communities right away. So early on, they had kind of incomplete information. We knew lots of things about other coronaviruses, for example, from the SARS outbreak in 2003. And so they were trying to piece together what was going to be likely the best advice for us as we waited for real evidence to come in. And so researchers have been working like never before. More has been published about SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID, and the disease than any other disease in human history. And as that information has come in, public health authorities have sometimes had to switch their advice. And to the public, sometimes this is confusing. It seems like it's arbitrary, and that can sometimes give the perception of untrustworthiness. The irony is that public health authorities are trying to be really transparent and build trust with the public. So it's challenging. It's challenging, but we're all doing the best we can with what we know when we know it.
That's really helpful. So the idea is usually we don't learn things until much later, till there's a much bigger picture. And here it's been as the picture is unfolding that we've been learning bits at a time. And it takes a while to actually get to something that feels like it's going to be more consistent over time.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, that's really, really helpful. So now tell us something about vaccines. I've always heard it takes years to develop a vaccine. And now it seems like in just a few months one came, and we're told that all the tests have been done, this is all credible. So give us a sense of what's the shift from taking years to taking a few months?
Yeah, that's an important question. I know lots of people have doubts about safety because it seems like it happens so quickly. So there are a couple important things to know. First, there's all sorts of research that's been done in different areas that's converged. That was happening for years and years before COVID happened. So for example, after SARS, we already mentioned SARS, there's a lot of interest in trying to understand coronaviruses, which the virus that causes COVID is. And a lot of study of the spike proteins. So you've seen pictures of the coronavirus. And the spike proteins are what give it that kind of typical shape, and even its name, corona, which means crown. So there is lots of research already happening on those spike proteins, and they had already been identified as probably a really good vaccine target. Then take genetic sequencing. Over the last few decades, the technology for sequencing genomes of viruses all the way up to humans has improved by light years. And so, for example, SARS-CoV-2 was sequenced in 10 days, which was unheard of even 5 years ago. And so scientists could identify the part of the genome, those genes, that genetic sequence, that actually codes for the spike protein. And then the mRNA, the messenger RNA vaccine technology, that's really new now. That actually didn't suddenly appear with COVID. That's something that researchers have been working on for a long time to address other kinds of diseases and even cancers. One of the reasons why it hadn't been put into use yet in a vaccine in circulation has to do with funding. And that's the second reason why vaccines have been developed so quickly. There's so much interest and concern and global will that there's tons of funds put towards developing vaccines by governments and even private individuals like Dolly Parton, maybe you heard about, donated $1 million to what is now the Moderna vaccine. So the story we often hear is the vaccine for COVID was developed so quickly, how could it be safe? And I think there's a better, truer story that we could tell, which is when globally we're motivated and we put the resources forward, we can develop life-saving vaccines very quickly. And I hope that becomes a new norm for us, because we still suffer from all sorts of things. Lots of people around the world suffer from diseases that could be vaccine preventable if we had the resources to develop those technologies.
Okay, that's really helpful. So it's the amount of work, and I bet there's tons of scientists who had a project and they put that project on the side and they just said, I'm going to give all my time right now to developing this one, so that there could be just so much more effort, right?
Yeah, exactly. And some labs even, they shut down unless they were working on COVID. And so they switched for various different reasons. And there was lots of money and available to do that work. Lots of reasons why this has happened so quickly. Lots of good reasons.
Okay, that's super helpful. So anything else you'd like to tell us that can help us with, like, what's going on here?
Yeah. So lots of people have been vaccinated, and that's really exciting. And there's still lots of questions, right? We've identified a few of them here, but there are others that people have too. And I would just encourage people, if you're still feeling a little bit unsure about these vaccines and whether they're safe and you should get one, or if you should wait, I would just encourage you to talk to the people who you talk to for all of your health advice. If your kid has an ear infection, or your elderly parent is suffering from dementia, or to manage your own health, your family doctor is the person that you generally tend to turn to, and that's the same here. Your family doctor is an expert in understanding new health research and applying it for your well-being. And so if you have any questions, that's a really good person that you can talk to.
That's super helpful. Thanks, Rachel. Really interesting to learn this stuff today. And along with all of you, thanks for all the ways that we're figuring out how to live through this time together. And thanks for walking alongside CMU this year and in all times. God's grace be with you.